Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to episode 6 of ALUMS Chat season 2. I'm Marwa, and on behalf of all of us at LUMS, I'm so excited to welcome another brilliant alumni that's been on the series so far. But if I start her introduction and the list of accomplishments, I think it'll take perhaps even more time than a lot of other guests who are perhaps decades on. So mashallah, this is someone that is very, very accomplished, and she started young. But she is making a lot of impact, a lot of meaningful impact in the work that she's doing. I'm so excited to introduce you to Zoha Waqas from the BSc class of 2024. Zoha, I do want to say thank you so much for being here and for making time for this conversation. So, Zoha, like I said, Zoha's list of accomplishments is too long for me to list down, but to give you all the major summary of it, Zoha is a Diana Award winner, which is a huge feat. She's a climate innovator, and she's Pakistan's first Tech for Impact ambassador. From blockchain-powered aid to clean water solutions, she's redefining how business in Pakistan can serve society, particularly from the angle of youth in our country and how the youth can really make a difference through the work that they do. And really, Zoha, I mean, like I said, your class of 2024, which was last year, exactly a year ago, because convocation is now around the corner. So you're probably feeling a lot of nostalgia also when you see the convocation, all of the posts go up. It's that time of the year again. But I want to start, Zoha, with your time from before LUMS. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up. Tell me a little bit about your background and tell me about the journey that led to LUMS.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Marwa, for having me. And I think I'm humbled of how you were running through that list, but I still feel like it's still the beginning. Yeah, I think when it comes to my journey, like almost any other student, it's been a roller coaster. So it wasn't linear. It wasn't directly to, like maybe I knew I wanted to come to LUMS, or I had it all charted down. It wasn't that way. So I've grown up in a number of different cities because I come from an army background. So we literally had to move uh, after 6 months or like 2 years. So that used to always happen. So I've lived in provinces of Sindh, Balochistan, Peshawar, and then we've lived at a lot of remote camps as well. So that's been a lot of cultural exposure. That's been exposure to a lot of different education systems, understanding what's happening at Pakistan. I think from the north to the south. I think that's also how I somewhat feel very close to the grassroots. But I think if we come, if we make like a long jump and come to maybe grade 8, and I also wanted to be like a doctor until till grade 8, like okay, so medical it is, we'll become a doctor, do big. But it was just 2 years till I think grade 10. I realized bio was not my thing. And then because I was good at math, I was like, okay, why not explore engineering? So I went into engineering in my college, started looking at architectural engineering. So that's where my interest started inclining towards. But then when I ended college, I knew, okay, I didn't want to do engineering either. So a lot of test and trial, and then I started seeing what did match with something that I had in my heart or mind. And then when I started looking at business programs, I started looking at marketing, started looking at different sectors. That's when I thought, okay, this is where some sort of structure to data and then some sort of structure to creativity could come combined into place. And I founded the program of management sciences. And I think very less number of universities offer it, and LUMS was the one to start it in Pakistan. I was like, okay, this is something that we should tap. It was relatively new at that time. So I applied, luckily got in, alhamdulillah, and then it was straight, okay, now let's explore business. And now when I'm graduated, I used to say 1 year even after graduation still feels unreal. But I think I cherish all of that confusion, all of that mess that was in the head of test and trial, understanding what I wanted to do and finding that match. I cherish that as much as I cherish now where I'm proceeding towards, what I'm exploring, what I'm doing. So I think that sort of productive confusion was also a big star to the journey, to actually explore and then find what I really wanted to do. So yeah, now into social business, it's a completely different tangent that I also explored within LUMS that I think we'll come to in the conversation later. But yeah, that's how it's been a roller coaster for me prior to LUMS.
I mean, I have to say that I think that it's probably very, very relatable. You know what you
Yeah,
just shared, because I think so many, not just, I mean, so young people going through it right now, they're probably feeling better hearing this, because I think that this happens so much more often
yeah,
than people think, right? And also, a lot of people, like even myself, I can tell you that we're thinking back on our journeys and we're relating to what you're saying, because I think हम सबके साथ किसी ना किसी point पे ये होता है, right?
yeah.
Where you end up differently from where you thought, but all of the decisions and all of your sort of processes lead you right to where you are.
Mm.
So okay, so Zoha, you made it to the business school, right? Lamza's oldest school, in fact. You know, we started as a business school. So how did your time at SDSB, how did that period in your life influence where you are now? You know, with, as you said, coming into the social impact space, coming into the technology space, coming into the climate change space. All of this, because these are really like, they're very niche areas, all of them. And you were in a business education. So tell me about those years at SDSB.
Yeah, so I think even like the first year at STSB, where you're put into that thing that we need to decide between whether it's ACF or MGS, is it numbers or do you want to go into data? And simultaneously, when everyone's saying, oh, this is the market scope, this is what's going to happen, so it's all of the pressure and fog that's building up. I think I took my sweet time to look at what I wanted to do. And then when I got into MGS, my primary reason was that I look at the variety that it offers. I look at how it was not sort of bounding me to one thing. And it was actually opening doors to how multiple avenues could be tapped later on. So that's why I went into MGS. And then I think I started as a very core MGS, like a consultant role early in my second year. So I started with an intern role and I was working with like different brands as a consultant. So like problem solving, creativity, and that comes from the learning that we had at STSB because we were not confined to think along just one line. We were actually pushed to think out of the box. And I think a very prime example to that is like the very first course. We were the COVID batch, so we were virtual. And the very first class and the course that we attend, we were put into a group project. So in that group project, we had to understand the industry. We had to go connect with industry leaders, and also for someone who does not come from a business background, it was slightly overwhelming as to what to do. But then like after 4 months, when you come up with that project report and you're done and you see, oh, you did that was like the process you put into that rigor. I think that was very rewarding into channelizing that sense of challenge that I wanted to take, the sort of thrill that I wanted. That's what sort of drove me to start early. So I started in SOF as a consultant, went into marketing, went, started interning at different positions. And I think that confidence also came from the sort of culture that we were put into practice, projects, case studies, interacting, networking, getting out of the comfort zone. And still, it wasn't the social side of business. But then I think it was in 2022 when we started seeing something very close to the homeland, the floods, which displaced 33 million people. I think that is when one of the projects that I was working on, it was Web3, a very nascent space at that time. That is where the idea was born, that while we're looking at business, we're looking at consultancy, problem solving, creativity, how the same model could just be replicated into a social business domain as well, so we're not limited. So I think that completed sort of the circle and started a new journey. So it completed the circle of how we were pushed into the classroom to think beyond, apply the same models, do not fixate, and maybe have your element of invention or innovation to anything that you're doing. So I think, yeah, that's how STSP played a role, and it pushed me to actually not bound myself to what was being taught in the classroom and apply it to real time. And simultaneously, how the journey of social business started in 2022 when the floods came, and then that's when we went into blockchain. Save Pakistan came into play. So yeah, that's how STSP has been like a key player, the hero.
The hero of your story. I mean, no, you're the hero of your story, always. But okay, so it's actually really nice to hear that. So, I mean, it was unfortunate for our country, but when the floods happened, it was actually something natural that happened around you that really spurred you on, to go into this space. And Zoha, the major accomplishments of your awards, which are very rare. I mean, people at your age, uh, don't win such international, mashallah, such prestigious awards like the Diana Award and the UNDP Youth for Climate Award, or becoming an ambassador for the Global Blockchain Business Council. All of these things happen to you very early on. So tell me something that when you look back at your time, do you think that your interest becoming originally sparked into climate action and all of this, the years of work that you put in during LUMS, was this something intentional that you did? Because I have to ask you, during university years, the undergraduate studies themselves, right? That's a huge, huge toll to take on, and students are already completely
Yeah,
overwhelmed, especially in a place like LUMS where we know rigor is strong, merit is strong, and you really have to put in the hours in. And this is something that you were doing alongside your
yeah,
academics. So were you intentional? Was this a personal motivation? Were you balancing this together? How did that happen? And really, honestly, I want to ask this from a perspective of, tell me about the challenges you faced also, looking
yeah.
back.
Yeah. I think when you talk about like it being intentional, so I don't think so at any point did I like chart this map for myself that this is something that I wanted to get into. It was actually the situations and how the circumstances unfolded and where I found my value match and something that I really wanted to do. So I think that is a personal motivation that did come up when I explored that project as to how we could bring blockchain into place, a pioneering project that could happen in Pakistan. And I think the key motivation at that point was how that benefit could go to the flood survivors, to make that happen. I think when we talk about the can do attitude, I think that is when I personally felt it, that okay, I really wanted to do. So that I think that was like a personal motivation at that point, and it was not easy to do it with having studies and courses, presentations, and everything. But then I did like chart it down for me. I started giving myself some structure. I used to design. I think that is how LUMS plays a very key role when it gives you like the autonomy to design your degree, to take your courses, to manage your time. I think that autonomy did play a very big role as to how I would design my day then. So I would take like maybe early classes or like later classes to have chunk of the day to my work. How I would maybe like rush for a call immediately after work, sit on a coca bench and attend a call as to how to deploy the project the next day. So I think it was a lot to do with time management. And at the same time, I think one of the challenge would be to also manage the time that I had to put myself through, a lot of structuring, how I used to like maybe miss out on a few things. And then you have that fear of missing out. And then you're like, okay, like, a lot of time you have those questions in your head, should I like maybe put this time somewhere else? Should I do something else? Should I just miss this meeting and, just go and enjoy and that? So I think that internal motivation at that point was so strong that I actually prioritized things for me. And I think that is one key learning that I still hold to myself, that whenever you're put down under a lot of things and you want to do all of them, so you want to be like, I want to do this, maybe prioritize, look at what in the present is something that's very close to you, something that you really want to do it right now, and something that you can push later. So yeah, the art of prioritization is something that did come into play at that point to navigate the challenges. Simultaneously, it was, I think, very it was very beneficial from the faculty end as well, where you could maybe tell them that, why may I not show up in the class next day, or how would I cover up my deadlines later? How do I plan on structuring it? Maybe also communicating it to the peers that, look, I have a meeting the next day. Maybe I would give my deliverables beforehand so you guys can maybe cover up. So I think taking accountability of the tasks that I had to deliver as a student and that I had to deliver as a professional simultaneously. And then prioritizing was something that helped me go through that rigor of academics and a professional life simultaneously while being a sophomore. So, yeah.
And do you, I mean, really honestly, now looking back on it, do you think that there are moments when you think back and you have FOMO that do you think you missed out on socializing maybe, or do you ever feel that way? Like, when you look back on that time, or is it a very good balance that you think you were able to achieve?
To be very honest, I think it was a very good balance that I was able to achieve. Even when I look back at it, I do not. I think it was a very impulsive thought at that point, if the fear of
Yes.
missing out or maybe not doing enough. And I think those are some sort of clouds that do take naturally over us at times. But now when I look at it, I think I did, because I was socializing, I was meeting friends, I was hanging out simultaneously. I was working at one of a very extensive project that had to be deployed at a very time crunch. So I think we deployed that project within like 20 days. So that project had to be deployed and academics. So I think balancing it and then navigating that balance and then achieving it. So I think that cycle really helped in not looking back at it and seeing that, maybe I missed something. And that also comes with a lot of support that I had during that time, that I still express a lot of gratitude to my friends, people who were around me, my faculty, my family, to how people do understand what you're doing, and maybe that needs more time right now than something else. So I think, yeah, that sort of understanding someone else's situation also did play a very key role at that point.
I mean, I think it's wonderful to hear that for everyone, when you actually account for the fact that we are able to achieve these things with support, and with other resources as well. But it's wonderful to hear that, Zoha, you were able to balance, like I said, you were able to balance a social life. So that
Yeah,
traditional university experience, you were
yeah,
able
yeah,
to have that alongside,
yes. Mm.
a professional trajectory, and then of course your academic experience. And all of this, the years of your hard work, I have to say, really, they came to a wonderful conclusion when you received, the Diana Award and the UNDP Award. And these are things as well that are really rare. And so when you think about that experience of, even receiving such global recognition, um, what did it feel like for you at that point in your life? And also, how do you think that kind of like that kind of platform helped, or is maybe currently helping you scale the work that you're doing? Like, how did they contribute towards what you continue to do?
Yeah, yeah. I think when it comes to these awards, personally, when we look at our country and the sort of circumstances that we're in, when this sort of award comes to any young person, if I focus just on the youth right now, I think it's always an honor and it's always a very humbling experience, because it's very rare that the youth is considered as, equal collaborators or someone in charge. So I think when it comes to these awards, one big win is for the youth, and then it's for Pakistan at those global platforms. So I think I did feel that very closely. I think just to like quote an anecdote, when I was invited to the stage of UNDP to receive the award, and I took my award and I got down the stage, a chant that I had from the crowd was "Well done, Pakistan." So it wasn't "Well done, Zoha" or "Well done," the project. It was for Pakistan. So I think that is something, and that really did move me, and that is when I do share with people that when we get on these platforms, when we represent the country, it's a big win for everyone. So it wasn't just a win for me, it was for my teammates, for my mentors, for everyone who has been a part of this journey. And number two, when it comes to how it is now supporting, is by actually bringing acknowledgement to the fact that yes, youth can be an equal collaborator to the project. Yes, a young person with studies can achieve something and let them take the charge. Maybe let them own the projects, let them navigate through the mess. I think that sort of trust that we're currently lacking. I think it's a big that the award in itself is a big call or an advocate for that sort of trust that has to be put into the youth. And how it's still supporting is, I think, through the networking that we're getting, through the channel and the atmosphere that has been developed around the sort of accelerators and programs that we're into to scale these projects and not just stop after the one-time projects. So even after Save Pakistan, when I moved to Tayaba organization, we started developing entire blockchain-based humanitarian distribution systems that were then deployed in rural Sindh. So the project has been on scale. And then with the UNDP, we now look forward in the next 3 months to deploy another blockchain-based humanitarian distribution system. So it is a road towards like a bigger impact now. And I think the facilitators to that is the sort of a word that has come into play, the sort of recognition and the trust and the honor that has come with it, and people actually realizing that, yes, if you let these young people and the one who have like a passion or an energy to take things forward, they believe in themselves, give them the charge, let them do it, and help them, be facilitators to them during the journey, consider them as equals and not less. So I think, yeah, that's how it has helped in scaling and further bringing a lot of trust and credibility to the systems that we're developing.
So I really really like the point you raised about the challenges that the youth face really
Yeah.
in wanting to contribute, and the perceptions that the youth have to actually fight in
Yeah.
this world, and the wonderful actual positives that come out of the youth receiving recognition for their work. I'm gonna circle back to this, Zoha, because it's a fantastic point. But I want to go a little bit to specifically the work that you did with Save Pakistan, and now you're doing with Tayyiba as well.
Yes.
For people that are not familiar with the fact that this is Pakistan's first blockchain powered aid distribution system, as you said. I mean, that's like it's a pioneering achievement, but I don't think a lot of people understand what that means. What does that mean? So thoda sa walk us a little bit through this idea. Like, how did this come to life? How did this happen? And what kind of an impact is this making on the communities that you work for?
Okay, I think that's going to be a slightly long journey. So I think firstly, if we start with Save Pakistan, because that has been a transition into me joining Taiba later. So Save Pakistan, as I said in 2022, when I was working as an end-to-end just a business consultant, looking at marketing, business development to a Web3 consultancy, working with them, and that's when one of my mentors, Bilal bin Saqib, when we saw that in the floods are there, it's very close to homeland. We're seeing in the news that the flood survivors are basically questioning that do we really care about them? So people who are very just like us are questioning us that, hey, like the fellow citizens, do you really like care about us, because we're not getting aid? So when we look at those headlines, when we look at those articles, I think we personally were very heartbroken. And that's when we thought, okay, let's look at what's happening in the system. So we went into like a big tunnel of research, and that research unfolded a lot of things that I wasn't ever like I think maybe aware of or did not delve into intentionally. And I found out that there have been patterns of how aid has been under corruption or has been under fraud or is being mismanaged or is being lost for years. And, millions of funds are not accounted for. And that has happened in the 2005 earthquake and then 2011 flood. So when the climate catastrophes happen, the aid is just not reaching the ones for which it was actually dispersed for. So that was one issue at hand. Then another issue at hand was that if an aid is dispersed, it's not reaching people at the right time. So an aid that reaches a flood survivor 6 months after the floods, it's probably of not as much value as it would have been at the first day. Now, this was another issue of efficiency. So we had two issues, efficiency and transparency at hand. And simultaneously, when we were working on a business project that was also about blockchain and looking at it from 100% transparent trading. And we were like, okay, let's bridge a gap between our learnings and our action and put something into place that these flood survivors can be facilitated at this point. So we started working on, firstly, the fundraising. Now, the fundraising angle, when we look at that spectrum in Pakistan, at that point, we were losing a lot of international trust because, again, there were questions at credibility. There were questions that, show us the system of how this fund that we're going to be giving to you is going to reach those flood survivors. And unfortunately, those conventional organizations or any donor did not have a mechanism to show that. And at that point is when we collaborated with Tayaba. That was one of the social enterprise only wanting to hop on a blockchain-based project at that time of, I think, some sort of chaos that was happening. So we partnered with them. They already had a lot of real-time inbuilt data in terms of showing people how, once you make a donation, it's not just a handout. We actually show you the process of how it reaches the beneficiary, what impact has it made at the household level. And that was very surprising because I was also one of the few who would maybe put money in a donation box and not ever track it. That did my money actually make it the family that I probably
But
put that money for? And I was surprised that, okay, now this is something that we need to hop on. So we started with the fundraising thing. We started with digital funds because the benefit that we were getting at that point was that it would be pegged to a multiplier. So if you're donating, for example, like 100 rupees, it would be 4x when it reaches the beneficiary, because that's how like the digital currency and those grants were operating at that point. So that was like the right opportunity tapping that we had to do at that point. So we started with partnerships. At that point, we had partners from all across the world. We had it from Hong Kong, Hungary, China. All of these leaders and experts, they came into place. They put together a mechanism of how we could first raise funds. And then number two, how we could mobilize those funds as flood relief, value-adding resources to the flood survivors in an efficient manner. So as we say in research, that was like our hypothesis or the problem solving that we were looking at. Now we started developing, we looked at the resources. So how the system in very simple terms operates is, for example, think of a QR code that you go and scan and you redeem the resource. Now in that QR code, have no third party, have complete transparency, know that the resource, where it's coming from, where it's going, what impact it's making, that's what we're dealing with when it comes to blockchain. So when it comes to blockchain-based humanitarian aid distribution, where it's more like maybe you make a donation and you would have complete data about where did that donation flow to, which household did it go to, what impact did it make. So you're getting all of your questions and answers to that because it's public, it's 100% transparent. So we put that system into place. We tokenized resources. Tokenizing resources is basically as simple as having a code to a resource that gets, when it gets scanned, it gets redeemed. So very simple terms. We tokenized those resources. We had the blockchain-based dashboards deployed. Funds were converted, digital funds were converted into the local currency, and all of this was deployed and put to the flood survivors in just a few days to reach almost 30,000 plus flood survivor, while having all of the data of where the funds went, which area, which flood survivor, completely cataloged and put to public view that this impact was made. At the same time, art was leveraged, like NFTs again, tokens having art on it, for people to actually know and monitor where the funds were going to. So again, just a lot of authenticity, a lot of transparency coming into play, and tokenizing resources and giving it to the flood survivors. So that's how Save Pakistan was formed, put into action, and the results that came out of it. Later, we expanded now for digital financial inclusion at the rural level. When we look at 100 million adults being unbanked in Pakistan and disproportionately women being unbanked. So we look at rural women, and I think, Marwa, this would be very rewarding to also hear that these blockchain-based digital wallets are being used in rural Sindh, in an area called Ghotki, by rural women. And it's not fancy terms. It's not like, oh, we're using a blockchain-based digital. It's like what they quote it as is, it feels like we're going to the market and we're shopping. It's just so simple. So aid that used to previously take months or weeks or days has now been reduced to just minutes, to actually make them resilient, to make them empowered, and then simultaneously they can hold their income within it. And that has an inbuilt multiplier effect to actually support their socio-economic conditions. So this was a big milestone for Pakistan to do it, have a proof of concept, and that proof of concept now driving trust into international institutions to actually facilitate organizations and individuals leading this change to scale it, right? Towards like a bigger mission of banking the unbanked, having authentic, trustworthy distribution systems, 100% transparent distribution systems, and then again being climate resilient so that you're actually prepared for a catastrophe that is to come, then to later think, when it has struck, it has unfortunately displaced a lot, um, having a lot of deaths cataloged, and then taking an action and thinking of what to do to actually have being prepared for it beforehand. So yeah, that's how our systems have now been scaling. That's how Safe Pakistan came into play. It was a 40 days project that was deployed to impact 30,000 flood survivors, and now we're scaling it towards financial inclusion, 100% humanitarian aid distribution in its transparent and authentic way, and then having banking the unbanked. Yeah, so that's how it has evolved and the projects have come into play.
It's actually, I mean, that was a really, I have to tell you, it was a very inspiring story to hear about the journey. And I think that for a lot of lay people like myself, even, I don't think there's a lot of awareness on how distribution systems like this can work. And I mean, it was like music to my ears to hear, some of the specifics that, like when you said we tackled transparency and we tackled efficiency. I mean, you rarely get to hear, right? That there are solutions in the world, or especially in countries like ours, ridden with challenges on so many fronts, where you're able to tackle something in so many ways through one solution. So really, I mean, what's wonderful to hear is that you really understand the intersection of all of the areas, Zoha, that you have worked on and that you are now working in, how they all kind of came together, so like now that's business, that's, as I said, that's technology, that's social impact, that's climate. Now I feel like you answered my first question through this really fantastic retelling of the work, and I understand why you've won awards now, hearing about how this has helped communities. So now Zoha, I'm going to ask you something from the perspective of any other Luminite or young person, or even beginning career person that thinks about going into this social impact space, which is something that many young people in Pakistan want to, because they want to give back to their country, and we understand the challenges that Pakistan faces. But there's always this contrasting inner battle of also wanting to make a profit in life and also wanting to succeed. So that balance between how do I make an impact and also turn a profit, but also do well in business. What advice would you give, or based on your experiences, what would you say to people that want to combine these two things?
Yeah, I think that the narrative that you're just quoting comes a lot from our very old, I would say, very conventional and traditional understanding of social enterprises or social entrepreneurship or social business, because a lot of people do see it from the lens of just charity, or maybe doing work because, oh, I'm nice, and I want to help people, I want to help the planet. It genuinely is not that way. When it comes to social business, it comes to social enterprise, it is very much business. It is very much understanding how to sustain yourself in the longer run. What is your product? Again, like I think quoting just a few STSB terms, what is your USP? How you're going to market it? How you're going to brand it? What will your customers think? It's just that the domain that you're operating in, that's different. Your customers here are different. Your audience that you're targeting is different. That's the only difference. It's not like you're in just a loop of just fundraising and dispersing those funds. That is a very conventional understanding of NGOs, and it comes from a lot of systems of how previously our systems have operated. It is unfortunate that people in development sector have been exploited under volunteerism. So I get where that narrative and notion is coming from, but I think for the current youth or current any young professional or anyone even wanting to transition into this is to very closely understand how social enterprises, social business, or this entrepreneurship sector is working now, because I think it is an equal competitor to any other corporate now, because but it's just that here we're not missing the third P, we're not missing the planet, which does come when you get into completely profit centric sectors. It does somewhat get compromised. So here we're keeping the three in balance. I think that's how I look at it, and that's how when you look at into the systems of social entrepreneurship, that's how you see it. I think one distinguishing factor here is that it's in I think in just the business terms is that there are no dividends, so you're not taking anything too much to self, and you're reinvesting and you're looking at how you create a very sustainable, a very resilient channel, so that the impact that you're creating, it goes on. So I think if that is something that resonates with you, I think this comes a lot to like a personal self. If that is a value that you want to do, and if you do understand how it's no less than of a business and it's no less than of a values that you would be probably incorporating at a corporate sector, at a startup, then it's very similar. So first, break through the barriers of all the narratives that have been built in the past, that you're not just going to be into charity work. Even like honestly, very personally, I'm very against the word of donation, or maybe linking it to sympathy. When you're working for human rights, you need to understand this is like a power gap that there is, this is like a privilege gap that there is. Everyone from the very start had to be on a very equal, at a very balanced level. Because that did not happen, that is a problem that came into place. Now the problem needs a solution. And then when it comes to SDGs or social work, it's not a sympathy that you're extending, it's not charity that you're extending, it's basically a solution to a problem that you're extending. So very much like when you make your product, you identify the pain points and you come up with a solution, and then you're providing a solution for monetization. So it's not like there's no money into the business. It's not like social business are just running on, as we say, it's not a tawakkal run business. It's not just like you're doing it just because you're nice, or 10 years down the line you'd be like, oh, I was a great person, I was a noble person. You can have similar, very similar business achievements within it when you know how to run any other similar business or entrepreneurship sector. So I think, yeah, breaking away from those narratives, reading about it, engage with the social enterprises. That's like a very booming space now in Pakistan. Engage with social entrepreneurs, social business, study their models and see, is it something that that is where you link? Do you understand the business side of it? And then yes, come into it. So like a lot of education and awareness is something that has to be done around this.
So, I mean, I think this really connects very nicely with that point that I was, telling you that I want to circle back to, of the youth-led angle of this entire effort as well. Where I love that you referred to a lot of what people deem to be barriers in terms of working in the social enterprise space as well. And I think that becomes a double-edged sword if you look at the barriers that the youth also face, right? In wanting to achieve certain things, right? There are certain barriers, there are certain hurdles, there are certain, I don't want to use the word stigma, but it's what comes to my mind, because there are certain perceptions about, like ageism is a very real, it's a very real concept, and I think all young and old people have faced both sides of that coin. So, you were talking about the barriers, and I had to really go back to this point as well, because, Suha, this is what something you're working on currently as well. Outside of all of the work you're doing with a social enterprise, you're also, you're very connected to LUMS today. You're on the advisory for SDSB as an alum. You're working on a hub for youth-based, collaboration. And so I'm gonna ask you two things, and they're both really connected. But you talk about unlocking the potential of youth in the country, and all that they can do. What do you see as the biggest gaps and barriers for young change makers in Pakistan currently, and that you've seen in your own experiences? And how do you think that we can help remove those barriers? And secondly, I think that the work you're currently doing is directly aligned towards, my first question. So what motivated you to do the work that you're doing, stay connected with SDSB, and tell us a little bit about the youth-based hub that you're working.
Yeah. I think when it comes to youth, because I'm also like within that, and I think youth is youthful. It's more about the energy that you hold. So it's the youthful energy that you want to even carry forward, maybe late in your 40s or 60s. I think with that energy, the sort of challenges that come is that we're not a lot of times when a young person would enter into a sector, it would be the first thing that you would get is, okay, so you're so young, how are you going to do it? So it's like a question to it, right? You're so young, maybe try it after like 10 years. So that basically hints at how young people currently are not considered as equal collaborators to anything that you can do. So I think one challenge and barrier that I do project for the next coming few years would also still exist, and it is on the youth to now break it, than to rely on the systems to do so. And I think that is where it is important for you to stay firm, to believe in yourself. I think once you come up with any sort of idea, once you come up, when you have like a mind map sorted, take that one small step. You will eventually figure it out on the journey. Number two, I think barrier when it comes to is a lot of when we come to like tangible resources. Unfortunately, we do lack resources. Um, we do lack a lot of policy making around the youth. Even when we look at, for example, like formal budgets, if we look at the research pattern, we see only like 10% of maybe the billions that are promised to the youth every year are dispersed, less than 10%. Then there are also provincial gaps to it. So that puts a lot of, I think, whenever like a young person would probably get into a project, one thing that would come to their mind is like, maybe I have to do it all. While that fear is very valid, I think it's very important to break through that fear and look at like-minded individuals, look at like-minded partnerships and collaborations that you can do, and also look for platforms which potentially do harness the youth energy and they believe in the youth. So while these systemic barriers are to exist for some time, maybe until taken seriously, which unfortunately I don't see happening. So I think it's the youth that has to maybe take the charge and come into network that harnesses that energy. And now this connects me to the second part when you say me being at the advisory board or me being in network with the LUMS Center of Entrepreneurship. I bridge it to how finding like-minded enterprises or individuals. My reason for being connected to my alma mater even after graduation and involving them in any sort of youth work is because LUMS in its values believes into the potential of youth. So now that's how I bridged that, because while obviously, yeah, there was opportunity scarcity, there was trust scarcity. We see how you need to tap the avenue. So when even coming up with the entrepreneurial hub, my first go-to was the LUMS Center of Entrepreneurship, to put it into play, and that is also very centered around maybe defogging this system. So I think just like a very example of how we say that we need to look at the lighthouse in the fog. How do you defog your pathway and find it? It's for the youth. The entrepreneurial hub is also for the youth to understand that, okay, this journey is very stressful, but how do you break through the stress? How do you not get caught in the stress and maybe let go of something that is very close to you, your passion? So I think now the solution for the youth is to focus on the action side of things, to not maybe get caught up in the problems, because that is a loop that will just keep on getting deep. Until like a solution comes at the systemic level, but find your ways through it, find your action oriented approach to it, and if you are working on it, eventually you will find a path to that. So the entrepreneurial hub is in partnership also focused on in bringing that entrepreneurial mindset, that problem solving mindset, into the young people to navigate any path that they plan to take, be it their professional path, career navigation, any project that they want to implement that has never been done before and want to build from scratch. They want like a bold place, like an accessible place to execute it, and where they cannot be, they don't have that fear of being judged. What if I fail? What happens? It's okay. That's eventually, after a few years, it's going to be like a learning journey to quote to someone that, oh, back, I feel how like our parents still continue to do. So hum is tarah chal ke school jate the, hum is tarah bus. So all of your struggles, all of your failures eventually do translate into a very beautiful story. So I think it's very important to understand those mistakes, be open to failing. It's okay, and find solutions to your problems. So yes, the entrepreneurial hub is focused on finding solutions and helping you facilitate through that journey. And while systemic issues are very heartbreaking, they can also, put you down at times. Just be firm and take like a tangible solution oriented mindset. Find solutions for yourself or get facilitators to find solutions for you.
So I have to say, it sounds like a magic unicorn safe space. It's
Yeah,
like for any young person listening. I mean, I think that's exactly what all of us that are trying to build anything or have an idea or want to execute something but are unsure. Anyone with
yeah,
imposter syndrome, that I think that your generation would really relate to. I think that this sounds like a very, very attractive
yeah,
space for them. So, okay, so, because Zoha, I was going to come to this as well, that you really beautifully reflected on how LUMS for you and really LUMS really is a space that believes in the potential of the youth. And so this is why LUMS was the place that you chose to use as like the launching pad for what you're
yeah.
creating. And you really connected LUMS in multiple ways through the rest of your story as well. But I was going to ask you, that how do you think that even for other current students right now, people that are hoping to come to LUMS, because that's a lot of the youth in Pakistan aspires
Yeah.
to study at LUMS one day. How do you think that they can use their opportunities that LUMS provides and the space that LUMS is to optimize on their
Yeah.
ideas and what they want to do in life and get to accomplishing
Yeah.
whatever they aspire to, based on your own
Mm.
experiences and the work that you're doing today? What would you
Yeah.
say?
I think to that it again comes, breaking that wall that you have with yourself. Because a lot of times, what young people or students would do is in their academic journey, they would have this fear of not experimenting. They would have wonderful ideas in their mind, but they would just not communicate it, or maybe go to someone and tell that, this is something that I want to experiment. This is where I feel like I might not be able to do this. What do I do? So just communicating. I think that communication is a gap when it comes to maybe students, and that is also understandable because you're dealing with academics as like a big monster simultaneously as well. So I think my honest advice would be encouraging that communication. So like what has worked for me is honestly doing projects on and having like students from the batch or from the class who would maybe agree like on a project that they all like-mindedly like to do, or something that would add value later, is something that they want to explore. So I think communicating that with your peers and faculty, hey, I want to do this project, how do I do it, uh, go to your instructors, put them on spot, ask them, I want to do this, help me do it, give me like a path to do it. And then with a lot of resources that come at LUMS as well. You have your faculty advisors, you have your student advisors as pals as well. Then you have your own LUMS Center of Entrepreneurship and resources there to go and tap to. Now, when it also comes to maybe for someone who did not make to LUMS or did not come to LUMS for any sort of reasons, we also look at a lot of external support that LUMS is extending currently via, I think, CES, the summer courses that they give, and also the courses that they give throughout the year. And it's I think it's not about being like a sales representative to LUMS right now, but just giving like a mirror to understand the opportunities that would also exist if maybe you're not at LUMS, or maybe if you're somewhere else, to how you tap that channel, right? You look at maybe the professors here, you look at professors somewhere else, you look at the projects that they're offering, the courses that they're offering, designing. I think a lot of thought to be put into how you design your degree. A lot of emphasis and support is extended to first years who come into place, that if you don't understand which courses to take, go to your faculty advisor, go to your student advisor. While also, I also have served as a peer advisor, I would maybe help them navigate, maybe taking this course this time could help you structure it better, but look at it how you want to do it. So designing your degree in a way that matches maybe something you want to do later. And number two, just be fair to yourself, and all of those wonderful ideas that you have in your mind, just let it out, start experimenting. I do not say hit like the bullseye the very first day, but start building that ladder, start climbing, and eventually you will pass the wall. So yeah, I think leveraging all of the resources by just one session of communication could really open great doors.
I think this will be probably very motivating for anyone, not just at LUMS, but I think, as you said, externally as well in other universities. Just like I said, to reinforce what you're saying, that really just try to make as much use of what you have
Yeah,
access to, right, in your
that,
community. But honestly, so I'm gonna ask you something really like on a really, really um as a success story today, like I personally, I can tell you, I read about your Diana Award through like a headline piece that came on the LUMS website. And so it's, you're like I said, you're an alumni success story that people will read. And it's and we all know that experience. If you read about someone's accomplishment and achievement, and it's something that always, as from a human angle, always seems a little bit far-fetched to us at first, right? And the experience of then actually getting to hear from someone is very different. So
yeah.
I have to ask you, from a very, very personal perspective, when you look back, what was your biggest challenge in your entire journey at LUMS and through wherever you traverse through in your professional space? When you look back, what was your biggest challenge? And based off of that, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your first year self, that new person that came to LUMS? Anything that you can be honest about.
Yeah, yeah. I think I kind of did mention it previously as well, but I think one big challenge for me was when that cloud of confusion takes you up on maybe like one of your bad days, and you feel like, everything's trembling down, it's not going to work out. Maybe, someone in XYZ doing this is doing wonders today, and what am I doing? Self-doubting, self-questioning, and that's very human. That's not just with students. That's with almost every other human being to just question randomly about I how I think one advice that I would give, and something that I've learned with time as well, and now I think a lot of my solutions lie within that practice, is that how I would now start mirroring those bad days. Do once your head is in a mess, once you have a lot of questions coming up and you feel like, oh, this is very stressful, I'm probably giving up, I'm not going to continue, I'm going to fail this course. I mean, I'll just tell you the sort of stress levels that first year students, and maybe, once, I don't very vividly remember, but I do remember hearing from people, having like one quiz that wouldn't go good, they would feel like we would feel like, we're failing the course. That's how we think about the future. We're like, okay, now if we're going to fail the course, we're never going to have a 4.0 again, our degree is destroyed. Now this is just the very first course in your freshman first semester, and you're like, okay, my LUMS life has completely destroyed. To not get into that. I think that is one advice would be to the first years. When you come, and there's going to be a very open struggle in navigating your life from high school to university. uh, Talk to people, talk around yourself, find solutions, mirror what you're doing, write it down maybe, assemble your thoughts, and then think of it, and you'll figure it out that it's not as bad as it is in your head right now, right? Just one quiz is not going to mess up your grades, probably not even going to mess up anything at all. So to give yourself that margin would be one advice, because at points I think it's a very unfortunate, we at personal level do not give ourselves margin to mistake or to fail, and we're just very tough on ourselves, and that's sad. We shouldn't be that tough on ourselves. So to every, I think my advice to my first year would be to not be so tough on yourself, to give things time, and whenever there's a cloudy day, um, take it slow. Maybe go to sleep. It will solve a lot of problems. A lot of time you're
I
just
think
like, you're just not fully, not on a sufficient sleep or eating schedule, and you just feel like, so yeah, take care of that. That's also one advice.
I think that falls into what you're saying, which is really like give yourself some self-love,
Yeah,
honestly. I think and cut yourself some slack. And I think
Yes.
this will be really comforting for a lot of people to hear from you because,
Yeah.
I mean, mashallah, now looking back, you got the LUMS degree, you made it through the 4 years, mashallah. You did it really well. You won some awards on the way. And so it'll be actually really, I think, motivating to hear from you as well that, if Zoha is saying you can make it through it with despite, tough days like this, keep the hope.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be good for everyone to hear. And also, Zoha, like I said, you're actually just you started your
Yeah.
professional work, everything all while you were studying. So you're just a year on post graduation, but you have a lot under your belt. But like I said, that's still only 1 year actually
Yeah.
after university life. So what are you looking for? What are you looking forward to in terms of the future? Are there any big dreams or big projects or
Yeah.
or big hopes you have?
Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for Zoha now?
Yeah, yeah. I think how I mentioned in like the conversation of not to think too much about the systems, and to maybe think at an individual level of finding solutions. One thing at the horizon would definitely be in the future to fix the systems. I know this is a future that might seem slightly unreachable, and that might seem like, okay, that's a very far-fetched thing, but when it comes to like maybe small steps that we're taking towards that journey, you never know. It could be a step towards revolutionizing or maybe reimagining the systems that have slightly been broken now or maybe outdated and they need attention. So I think all of my efforts would be maybe on two fronts: empowerment of all sorts. To all sorts of individuals that we're looking at, to all sort of sectors and systems that we're looking at, so to have like an equal ground for everyone. And number two would be to actually what business eventually was supposed to be in its true sense, the three P's, and not just profit centric, to have those three P's in balance so that we one day did not have to really create a distinction between a social business and a business, right? So we just have like one phase that is actually looking at the planet, at the people, at the profit. So I think those would be horizons. And when it comes to the pathway to that, those are very small steps. um, Working where what I'm doing, maybe building on these projects, scaling those up, looking at a ripple impact on the way, exploring other opportunities and other avenues that can be built again from the very start, very small steps, and eventually how these small hubs are basically going to fall into place to make a new system. So that's how I see it. You work on hubs, you work on smaller steps at smaller homes to make a village again. So yeah, that's how I look at it.
I mean, that's actually like that definitely falls under the umbrella of mashallah, a big dream and actually a very,
Yeah,
very I would say for anyone who wants to contribute to Pakistan and wants to, give back to our country and wants to stay here and do their bit. I think that that's a very like aspirational goal for you to improve the system, the
yeah,
system with all
yeah,
its gaps and all its failings. And as you said, but what I really like is that you said that baby steps is the way to
yeah,
go, to work on it
yeah,
in baby steps. So, and I think that's your journey as well, Zoha. I think that thank you so much for sharing your story.
yeah,
But we realize that, in this conversation with you, that it's all the little bits and all the
yeah,
little things that you've done in the 4 years of your life at LUMS, the time before that, the time since, what you're still doing, staying connected with your alma mater. I think that is something that is such a fantastic way also that you're giving back.
yeah,
I think there should be mandatory listening for all of the young Illuminates right now because I think they're gonna learn so much. So I want to thank you so much for thank you so much for the authentic
yeah.
sharing of your
Yeah.
story.
Thank you so much, I think, for having me. And also, I think just to the alumni network for being connected and always having these opportunities where they could bring these stories to light. Because I think everyone's doing great wonders at their own self. It's like everyone has their own star. So I think just giving a little more light to that star, I think the credit goes to LUMS for this. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. LUMS is as strong, as its alumni and its
Likewise.
its alumni ambassadors. Thank you so much. Thanks
Thank
everyone for watching. And
thank you.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.